So I've talked before about why we should read, and reading is about increasing our empathy. It's about entertainment and relaxation and stress relief. But I think that reading is also about introspection. And what I mean by that is that reading is an opportunity for us to look at our own lives and see what we believe, two, why we believe it, and three, how we're living lines up with what we're believing. So when I read a book, there are going to be moments in those books that resonate so intensely with me that I can feel it in the marrow of my bones, and I want to proclaim it, right? There's a quote in a John Green book called The Fault in Our Stars where it talks about how there's an evangelical zeal that overcomes people when they read a good book, where they feel like the whole world is shattered and will essentially remain shattered until they read this book. And I think that's very true. And it's not necessarily about reading the book, but it's about those moments that when you read them, you feel them on that intense level. One of those moments for me is in the book Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan. In that book, there's a moment where Nick and Nora are getting to know one another, and Nora is talking about being Jewish, and Nick asks her a question that I don't think many people would ever ask somebody directly, which is, well, what do you like about being Jewish? So, first of all, such an interesting question, because I have relationships with so many people that have different religious views, different backgrounds than me in one way or another, and it would come across, I think, as strange if I asked them what they like about that, but it also would benefit me so intensely to know what they like about where they come from and who they are. And so he asks, what do you like about being Jewish? And Nora says, there's this concept in Judaism called tikkun olam. And essentially what that concept means is that the world is shattered into a million pieces, and it's our job to find the pieces and put them back together. And I thought, well, that is such a beautiful idea that we could somehow have a hand in repairing this broken world. And Nick then asks a question again in his ignorance of Judaism and his own trying to understand what she's saying. But it's a very good question. And he says, well, what if we're the pieces? And she says, well, what do you mean? And he says, what if we're not trying to find the pieces? What if we are the pieces? And when I read that scene in Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, it was like an explosion in my soul. Because for me, one of my greatest heart cries is to see community and unity. Community is, come is together, and unity is also about being together, right? So this idea of us coming together in unity. And unity is not the same thing as uniformity. We don't need to be the same as one another, but this idea that we could somehow bring people back together into relationship. And for me, this was a moment in a book that a lot of people probably might not read a second time. They might enjoy it. It might not have this deep soul resonance that it had with me. Everybody has different books that have that impact. But it lit up this great desire in my life for bringing people together. And that's what literature can do, is it can show you what really matters to you. And that's one more reason why I really think that every single person needs to find a good book and pick it up.